As you can see, I'm about 66 pips short Euro USD. This is the same trade, same idea that I was looking for yesterday. However, yesterday I took a loss, about 1.4%. I'm gonna pull up the P&L here in a second. I'm gonna actually walk you guys through the trade. But really, I want you to do me a favor before we get into this. Put your phone down, shut off Facebook, get off Twitter, and focus here with me for the next 10 or 15 minutes. Because what we're gonna do is show you how yesterday I took a really good setup, and I still took a loss. And a lot of new traders, a lot of struggling traders will get in that same position. They'll take a good trade, but take a loss, and instead of handling it how I did, which is, it's taken me a lot of experience to get to this point, but instead of handling it how I did, where you take the loss, you wait for the next one good trade, and even if that means coming back the next day, that's what you do. A lot of new traders will take that loss and jab back at the market, throw more entries in, go to a different pair and trade something that maybe isn't even an entry. You've probably been there if you're watching this video, right? We've all been there. That's part of the journey as a struggling trader, as a trader that's coming up. But what I'm here to do with my channel, with all of my content, is to shortcut your learning curve, to really get you to the position that I'm at, and then further, faster than I got here. So here, before we get into the charts, I want to touch on one more thing. It's super easy for anyone to show you how to get into a trade. You click buy, you click sell. There's even a chance, if you don't know what you're doing, that you make money on that. But where I think trading really is made, where the real trading is done, is in your exits and in your risk management. Now, if you agree with me, because you know that's true, give me a thumbs up already. If you don't agree with me, I'm gonna drive that point home to you here in this video. So right now, it's Tuesday, July 16th. I'm up 65 pips now in the piece of this entry that I still have in on Euro USD. I've closed most of the position because, as you can see, it moved over 100 pips from my entry, so it was a pretty massive trade. I was very happy with this win, like I said, especially coming off the loss yesterday. If we pull up the P&L from yesterday, you can see I took a 22 pip loss, and I actually closed some of it here at down about 5 pips. In total, the loss was about 1.4%. I was able to come back then today, as you can see from this P&L, and hit Euro USD again, short, for about 60 pips with my best close so far. And like I said, I still have a piece in, and I'm up about 3% on the day. So already about 1.5% on the week, and I've covered that loss. I want to show you the markup of the trade from yesterday. Here you can see everything looked really good for shorts. The EMAs were coming into a downtrend. The L50 and the TDI were in the sell zone. So everything was telling me that we could get movement to the downside to start the week. I think the issue here that ended up leading to me closing some of the trade as it broke back through the 21 EMA right here, and then I got stopped on the rest of it here. I think the issue with this trade is that you are still inside what I call the Asian range. That's the first 8 trading hours of the day, from the 5:30, 5 o'clock p.m. New York time changeover all the way till about 1 a.m. Those 8 hours, that's the Asian session. That's when Tokyo is up, Australia is up, and I group those together and call them the Asian session. When we wake up, if we're still trading within that range, that tells me it could be choppy. My mistake yesterday was that I didn't ignore that. I was paying attention to it, but I traded it a little heavy for a trade that was inside the Asian range, just because we know that sometimes in the Asian range, like I said, it can be very choppy. If you take a look at the 1-minute chart of my trade, I waited for my entry. I had my divergence set. I see the first D1. I waited for it to make a structure point, a lower high that could tell me I have a good risk reward setup and I'm more likely to win the trade. This type of setup normally, as you've seen in my other videos, is a winning trade. But I think today, or excuse me, yesterday, because you're in the Asian range and because the EMAs were not in a full trend, you see the 200 EMA way up there, I think those two factors are what kept it from being a great trade on a Monday. For me, my biggest takeaway from it was that I graded it a B setup, but I should have graded it a C setup just to trade it a little bit smaller because there were 2 things wrong with it. It was in the Asian range and the EMAs could have been better. With 2 things wrong like that, it should definitely get a C setup. But the point here is that I took the loss and I waited and waited and waited and tried to find a re-entry yesterday on Euro USD. If we take a look over here at the chart, you'll see this is the 15-minute chart from yesterday. I waited and waited and waited. And what did it do yesterday? It literally never gave me a signal. So I was looking for it to come short here. It ends up coming up and stopping me out and moving higher overnight from the New York session forward into the end of the day. That setup, divergence on top, where you see the RSI set its high here at about 3 p.m. New York time yesterday. Price action continued to move higher last night, but but we had a top set in here at the Asian session high. Once that top was set in and we started to make lower highs here, and then again here, underneath this top, that's what set up the risk reward opportunity for me as a D2 entry to see this drop at least 20 pips or so to the 200 EMA, this white line right here coming through the middle. So that 200 EMA was the first target. At that point, I closed most of the trade because I've seen many D2 trades hit that 200 EMA and bounce because the overall trend is still long. I closed most of the trade and I ended up just moving my stop into profit and letting it go. And that's why I'm still able to be in this trade now, because it's moved away from me pushing off this D2 idea. This is the same direction. This is the same pair as yesterday. A lot of people would come in after the loss yesterday. They'd be frustrated. They'd be forcing a trade. But I came in and I just acted like it never even happened. I learned my lesson from it, which was that I traded it a little bit too heavy. I should have taken those 2 knocks seriously. So today, my only thought was, hey, make sure if it has 2 things wrong with it, you don't trade it too heavy like you did yesterday. That was my only mistake that I was focused on because I've been very hot on my entries. My entries are on point right now. So the sizing was the issue to fix, and I did well today to fix that, and that's why now I'm profitable on the week between these 2 positions, yesterday and today. I also want to show you, just briefly, if we erase all of this, if we go to the daily time frame, you can see we were at the 800 EMA, this blue line right here. What happened last time we came to the 800 EMA right here? Came right down off of it. How about last time we came to this price level here, which is back in last summer of 2019? It fell. So every time we've come to this level, right here, you can see it's moved off of it. So now for me to be short biased off this D2 idea, and then I can go down to the 4-hour and see this head and shoulders forming right here, that made me really feel confident that, okay, I might have an entry that I could hold for a couple of days. And now, as you can see with this position, I'm up 66. I'm going to hold the small piece that I still have in through Wednesday. I'm going to let it stop me in profit up at my entry, or I'm going to let it continue to fall and see if we can get this down to 1.11, maybe even down to 1.1, down towards the 800 EMA. Because the same idea that I traded on the 15-minute today as a D2, you can see it right here. Look at the divergence, right? RSI is falling, price is rising. And if you don't follow how I draw that, please go through my channel. There's a playlist about divergence trading. I really think if you just watch that, you'll understand everything. And now look, same idea. Broke the 50, came back, tried to get higher. It can't. We now have a lower high and we're breaking back through. That tells me that this should make its way down to the 200 EMA. If this yellow line, what we call the TDI, or what we call the L50, it's on the TDI, if that can get under the 50 value before the RSI comes back up through it, that's going to be a really good sign too. So I'm holding a small piece of this into the rest of the week. I've done that a couple of times before, you guys have seen. And I think that you can only do that when you have some experience and when you take your loss as well. Because now, again, just let's backtrack for a second. Imagine if I came in frustrated today and I didn't hold my short bias and I didn't take this D2 entry that presented. It's not just like I jumped in short because I was short biased yesterday. I took the loss well, kept it small, and then took the next good entry signal that presented. It just happened to be that I opened up to this pair and saw the idea. I woke up this morning and saw it broke the 50 at 345. So I knew if it came back down through the 50, I would have a good risk reward setup to see it come to the 200. And it just worked out that it gassed on the US news because I figured, if you take a look, I figured that news would be good today for the dollar because it was so bad previous, anything would be good. And I was right. Good news on the dollar here at 17.7% for retail sales, better than forecast at 8%. That good news pushes Euro USD down and pushes the dollar index up. So I was holding the piece of my trade into the news with the stop loss locked in profit, of course, but only doing that because I thought the fundamentals would line up with me, and they did. I knew that the dollar had to bounce back at some point, right? And I know that's not a trading strategy, but if you're in an entry already and you can line up a fundamental reason of why you should hold, lock the stop and make more money. That's what I'm doing, and that's what I want you guys to do.